Hello everybody, my name is Edgar and I am the City Sprouts Urban Ag Outreach Manager. Today we're going to be talking about tomato clipping. We're working here with a cattle panel trellis system supported by T-post. Now this is not necessarily the only method that you need to use. There's several other different methods that you could use to be able to hold up your plants. Anything such as tomato cages. You could do something as easy as putting two posts next to each other with some string running across it. So you can get creative with it. The main purpose is that you want to have support for your plants, especially as they start to develop, and as they start to develop some fruit. So the first thing we're going to be looking at here, again, tomato pruning. We want to focus on making sure that your plants are clean. You want to make sure that they're also nice and spacious, that they have a lot of space for air circulation for the plant. So one example that I wanted to show you here is, as you can see in some of these plants, they start to grow one main stalk, and then from there you have all these other branches that come out of them. Now from each individual branch, you're also going to get what's called a sucker. A sucker is just simply another piece of the stem that grows, that wants to develop, but in the same way it's going to kind of take energy from the main source of the plant. So here's a good example. As you can see, the stem, we have all these different branches coming out of it. But as we're pruning the tomato plant, what we want to do is we want to focus all the energy towards the main ends of the stems. So here's a good example of what we would want to take off from the plant. You could start from the bottom, you can work your way up, but here's a specific example on a plant, on a stem that you want to be able to clip towards the top. So we simply want to clean it up, and we're going to be using garden pruners. These are pretty fairly common thing you can find in most gardening stores. But you want to cut this right from the main node. This is the part of the plant where this sucker is going to grow from the main stem. You simply clip it, you can discard that, and then you can continue all the way through the stalk to see how much more you need to do. So for example, this here we can definitely cut off because this is going to develop into another branch. But once again, that branch is going to take energy away from all the energy that can go out towards this side of the plant. So once again, we find that close to the node, we clip it off, and you're going to continue the process. You don't have to necessarily clip every single stalk or every single sucker that you see. But again, we want to make sure that the plant is clean enough that it's going to have enough energy to produce healthy fruit, and it's going to limit any kind of pathogen or any kind of insect haven for them to be able to thrive in. So once you get this cleaned up on these stalks, you can also start looking at these stems from the bottom. Here's a great example. This is grown from the bottom of the plant, and unfortunately this is touching the ground, and this is not good because this is going to give you a lot of access to these insects to be able to crawl onto your plant. We want to go ahead and trace it back to the main stalk, find the node, and clip it off. And you're going to repeat the process until you're training your plant to have one main stalk growing from here, from the ground, and growing all the way towards the top. The next step is to be able to take these stalks that are now being trained, as we call it, and you want to be able to clip them. This is simply used to make sure that the plant gets enough support and that it's not going to fall on the ground once again, especially once tomatoes start growing. To do that, we're going to be using these tomato clips. These are fairly simple, very common tool to use in gardening. All you do is just simply put the stalk in there and you clip it together. So once again, you find a good spot for the plant, which is generally going to be right below the node. And then once you find that, clip it to a place in your trellis that's going to give you enough support. And once it's tightly secure, you can continue the process all the way to the top, just so you know that your plant has enough support to be able to produce fruit production without being damaged. Now, you don't necessarily have to use tomato clips. We have several examples as well. We have zip ties that you could use. These are pretty straightforward. Again, you find a good place for this to clip onto your trellis. And once again, you want to make sure that you're clipping these by these nodes because these are going to have more support and not damage the plant if it gets heavy enough. Make sure that you do not tie these super tight. Keep in mind that these stems are going to continue growing and they're going to get thicker. So you want to give them room to develop. So leave it fairly loose. That'll give enough room for that plant to develop. Another third option you could use to be able to clip your plants onto your trellis system is string. Here we have simple gardening string. And this is a fairly inexpensive way to be able to not only trellis your plants, but also it's very customizable. So what I would recommend is make a small knot. Make sure it's not tight. And then use that to tie it into your plant so you can hold it up against the trellis system. And once again, make sure that these are not tight because your plants will continue to grow. And you want to also be able to come back and then adjust it if you need to. Or you could just simply tie a brand new knot. But once you have this set up and you're training your plant accordingly, it's going to then be able to give you a lot of fruit, a lot of flower production, and it's going to keep your plants pretty healthy throughout the entire season.